interesting almost 21 years that I had here in Butte, working my way up from Assistant General Manager of the Greater Butte Project to manager of mines and ultimately manager of the whole show in Montana when my grandma retired and unfortunately died of cancer.
Can I ask you, you said that McGlone called you about the Greater Butte Project. Martin, tell us what the Greater Butte Project is.
Well, the Greater Butte Project is written up in the report on the project that I gave to this archive. Describes in some detail their write-ups of their history before I had even arrived on the scene. Dick Newell wrote a very good history on the geology that was involved in the hundreds of thousands of tons of ore that had been left behind by the selective mining methods. And there was quite a study and effort made to how can we mine what's left here at the top, because this whole east side of the hill, well, it was estimated at 130 million tons of 1.2% ore. This was made up of what was considered waste from the selected square set days and used for backfill in those square sets, and some of the smaller stringer veins that were called the horsetail area because there were lots of small veins not large enough to mine selectively, but in total would add up to a mineable product providing it could be done cheap enough and in volume. So the proposal was to mine it by caving, which Hannifan had considerable experience at. They are mining Inspiration, Arizona, around 20% of it was block caving. The Andes mine in Chile, of course, and there was a County Colorado, Teniente, big block caving mine also in Chile. It was a method that was well proven, but not for this type of material. Not trying to remine a whole remnant area that had been stuck full of the wet tailings in order to quench fires and all of the bad things you could possibly do to make it difficult caving had been done for good reasons, but the effort was made and they piloted it by mining a couple of 3 blocks on a small scale. It looked to be successful, and that's why they dared to go ahead with it. So it did work out rather successfully. We did ultimately get up to the scheduled 15,000 tons a day, which by the way was more of a limit of mill capacity than it was mining capacity. And we had to go through a lot of torment along the way, solving the problems of buried ground and failing supports, and of course the wet, sticky plugging problem we never really cured. There's no way to cure it with that particular method. But we got up to around 20 tons per man shift, where normally you'd expect to get 30 to 40 tons per man shift, talking now efficiency. And so all in all, it was a success, but not a financial success. As in the list of cost and selling prices that I listed in my report to you, it's pretty evident that we broke even at best most years, and I think when we got a nice surprise in one year when the price of copper went to 56 cents a pound, we made a few $1 million at the Kelly mine. Most of the time it was touch and go, break even. And so when the situation changed to where the geologists had decided we had open pit possibilities, we converted over to open pit and in the meantime mined out what was already developed or partially developed in the Kelly mine and abandoned it with the hope and plan was always to come back once we mined all that was mineable by pit methods, come back and enlarge and go at it in an even bigger and better way by caving, taking advantage of the fact that we had finally mined our way down to areas that were larger in size, more virgin in nature, and certainly less of a problem than those early high square set stope area. But history has shown that we never got back there. It's still down there for somebody to mine someday, somehow, some way. There's literally close to 1 billion tons, pretty well proven, that could be hauled over if one could make a profit on 5 tenths to 6 tenths material.
Would you see those developments as being open pit or underground, or do you think there's a new technology that will be developed in the mining field to access those reserves?
Well, there's been a fair amount of research and effort made on various methods, the leaching in place, in situ leaching, so-called. But in order to do that, we need really to fragment or fracture the solid rock in place. And it was even proposed way back in the early days of atomic blasting, not that it be done in Butte, but that this was a possibility. They actually did an experimental job down in Jackass Flats near Las Vegas that I visited about 4 years after the blast. And they had lifted the mountain and let it drop back down, and we're actually drawing up broken material out of chutes just like you would in Blockading. They're done with atomic blasting. There were other means of approaching volume mining, you could say, sub-level stoping. There's various methods that might be applied that are more mechanized, not so much handwork, and so dependent on the crumbling and caving of the ground, the rock itself, to provide the OFB. What they call scoop tram or low ball dump type mining, a big scoop working underground. Henderson is mining molybdenum ore in Colorado very successfully that way. It's essentially Blockading, same thing but mechanized. But again, they have the advantage there of relatively hard ground that can be opened up to size necessary for such equipment and sustain itself while it's going through the mining ground. That would be very doubtful to do that. The strength of ground here has never been such that you could open up almost railroad-sized tunnels and expect them to stay open. But there's possibility. I think it's the environmental problems that would prohibit it, not forestall it's ever even considered. You would have to have freedom. If you're going to blockade, you're going to subside the surface. No way out of it. And it's going to subside on a 45-degree slope at least. And there's some circles drawn, I don't know whether you have them here, but as to what was in the works, if we went down 3,000 feet for blockading and subsided out to 45, it'd be over here in this area.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons we were buying out Crain and everything through over the Wyoming Street, if you recall, was pretty much blocked clear, partly through open pit, partly through the possibility of blockading.
In your papers, you did a blockading. Did you do it, or was it just proposed to blockade at the Badger State Line?
No, we did, actually. That was, I guess I could take credit for it because I was pretty desperate at the time. I had to lay off all my old friends in the Kelly mine, moved as many as we could up into the pit. But Ed Remlo was still alive at the time, and he concurred. And we had to refurbish some of our Zinc Mountain anaconda to handle it all. We, and the geologists have promised us, I forgot, maybe it was something like 3% zinc at least. And so we set up the best that there was. It wasn't a great number of tons. And the Granite Mountain shaft was a concrete shaft, the only one other than the Kelly, so it was in good condition.
How come,
Pardon?
excuse me, how come the Granite Mountain was concrete? When did that?
And what?
The Granite Mountain, you said the Granite Mountain shaft was concrete?
Yes.
When did that happen?
I think after the speculator fire.
Oh,
I'm not sure. It was a zinc mine always. And in fact, my friend John Calloy, that was superintendent at the Kelly, was the superintendent of the Badger for some time. So I really don't know when that was concreted, but I don't think it was original. It was concreted afterwards, driven as a wooden shaft. And so anyhow, it became the source of the service to the Blockading mine. And I think in those reports I gave you, it shows roughly the tonnage that was mined. And the grades were somewhat disappointing. The price of zinc was always a disappointment. I remember when we finally shut the whole show down and quit zinc mining, Ed Remler always was, Martin, keep your eye on the price of zinc, because for years around here, he said, when things get tough in the copper area, generally the price of zinc goes up enough we can move miners over there back and forth. So that's been a great help over the years to, sustain our workforce. But unfortunately, there came a time when we had to curtail in the copper mines because we weren't making it, and the zinc price of zinc was down, I think, about 12 cents a pound. Some of those reports would show that, I think, as I remember, 18 cents a pound was the very minimum we could even think about starting. I don't know what zinc is now, 25, 40.
no, I have.
But anyhow, we did mine and it worked rather successfully. But, the grade was disappointing, the quantity, the volume of ore available, even the proposed grade was not so great that we could stay with it very much. But that was the last gasp of zinc mining.
And was that in the 70s?
I believe that was 62 to 65 thereabouts.